Hi, it's me, Destiny Brandt, founder of It's Destiny Sales Recruiting, and hopefully your recruiter. I wanted to talk a little bit about asking value-based questions as it relates to an interview. Discovery, sales discovery is both an art and a science, and I encourage people to visit our website with tons of different talk tracks from content and sales leaders on how to run a good discovery and needs analysis, regardless of what you're selling, whether you're selling a product, a service, or in the case of an interview yourself. I also think that it is important to note when you're asking questions in an interview, context is super important. Executives are trying to determine how much context or how little context you need or you are deserving of. So by giving a little bit of insight as to what you know, what you've done, and then asking the question, it will then give them a frame of reference of what you are, what they need to be able to provide to you in order to come to an understanding. I also think that for every question that you ask, it's important that you add follow-up questions to really qualify and quantify why is that important and when is that subject to change and how can I be proactive with that and how does that make you feel. The goal of an interview is to make sure that you are asking questions that helps you have a deeper understanding of the role, the requirements, but then to get intel from every person in the interview life cycle. I think a lot of people will go into recruiter or HR screens, for example, thinking, oh, that's not super important. But at the end of the day, recruiting is very similar to the sales cycle, and any person that you meet throughout the sales cycle or recruiting life cycle is a champion. So it's important to make sure that you're asking questions that relate to that specific person's job, their success measurement, what they're tasked to do. What some of the things that the best salespeople or interviewers do is show that persona, hey, I understand your job, your success measurements. I'm here to make this easier for you by building a case and asking really thoughtful questions that are get approved to you, that I'm not going to embarrass you, or that I'm the type of salesperson who can ask good discovery questions. So make sure that your questions are tied around that person's job. For example, for a recruiter, how many jobs or do they have open? Is this there because there's a new territory, a new segment? Is this because there's a fall off? Can that she tell you a little bit about what's worked and what hasn't worked with some of the candidates who she's recruited before in the past, whether that's advice that the manager have given about things that candidates can do to put their best foot forward in the interview cycle or to just finalize the deal or win an offer. So make sure that you're asking questions that really play to that person's job title and their role within the company. A good salesperson is going to get intel. So one data point that eventually is looped into the final decision maker call where you're able to say, this is what I learned from Destiny. You have 2 open headcount. You have a team of 9 at an average of $1 million quota. The goal is to get to 15 million. You do have this fall off rate based on what I understand, X, Y, and Z. So ask the right types of questions to the right person in the recruiting life cycle. Lean on champions. Get as much intel as you possibly can about what they've seen work, not work, and then the next person in the recruiting life cycle and the best way to influence them, what kind of stories, examples, things that you can teach them to put your best foot forward. Try to tie in that loop with every person that you talk to, that you're learning, and this is how it's going to be applied to that final call. The kind of toxic example that I give with asking questions is if your partner or someone that you live with were to, come up to you and say like, hey, what do I need to plan for this trip? Very self-serving, direct type of questions like, what is quota? How many reps are meeting quota? That person doesn't understand. That person could potentially be the type of person who's like, do you want me to make you a list, right? And so that goes back to the first point of context really matters, being able to share with someone, hey, this is, the top 3 things that I know that we need to do. I've already done these 2 things. What's an additional thing that I can do, to really help alleviate, some of your worries or your concerns as it relates to your role. So whether it's personal relationships or business relationships or even, interviewing context, having a frame of understanding, and then inviting that person into the conversation of what would they add, what would that take away. I also think the best salespeople, kind of reverse Uno, the interview style of tell me about a time, give me an example. Can you tell me about a time that you worked with a rep to multi-thread or to close a deal with a C-level executive or worked with a rep who was maybe underperforming for a quarter? Get them to give you a very specific example. I think the most bullish way that you can start kind of going towards, getting kind of proof and validating yourself, or getting more of an understanding of what's required, is ask for proof. Ask for like some examples. Are you comfortable giving me an example of your drip campaign, or, questions that you ask in a discovery or an agenda, right? See if they're willing to share additional things that you can see and feel, and by extension, offer things that they can also see and feel, like, hey, I'd like to prepare the questions that I'm going to ask the next person in the recruiting life cycle based on what you told me. Is it okay if I shared that with you? So be willing to ask, be willing to share, and be willing to show in the same way that you're expecting them to, if you really want to get insights, nuances, examples, and proof that a lot of candidates just don't ask for. If you are watching this video, you are more than enough. Don't forget to drink your water. Cheers to you.